So anyway, we are going to get started. We'll start lying down on our backs today. So go ahead and make your way there now. And let's start with our knees bent and the feet on the ground. And go ahead and take a nice big breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. And one more time, big breath in. And let it out. And return back to a breath that feels natural for you. Your hands can rest on your belly or they can rest on the ground, whatever feels the most supportive. And we'll take a moment to just let our bodies lay here on the ground. Feel your feet connected to your yoga mat. Feel the back of your pelvis, so your tailbone, maybe even the sacrum for some of you, connected to your yoga mat. Feel the back of your upper back connected to your mat. The shoulder blades, the backs of the shoulders. And if your arms are resting on the ground, you might feel your arms and the palms of your hands on the ground too, or the backs of your hands. Feel the base of your skull connected to the mat beneath you. All of these main points where our body makes contact with the ground. So that's the feet, the tailbone, the back of the head, the hands, and all those spaces that I just mentioned. Is it possible to let them release into the ground even more? Allowing the ground to fully support you. And then take a moment to notice all those places where there are parts of your body that don't touch the ground. So our knees are bent, so the backs of our legs are depending on your body. For a lot of us, the small of our back or the lower part of our back is just ever so slightly curved up and off of the ground. The back of our neck is slightly lifted off the ground, that small place where the neck curves. Maybe you notice other parts of your body that aren't touching the ground. And then from those places where your body doesn't make contact with the ground, the question is to ask yourself, is my body not touching the ground because of the way it's shaped? Or is it because I'm holding tension there? Right? So the small of our back can't touch the ground because our spines are curved. But maybe there's parts where your body could touch the ground, where you're holding tension. So take a moment to just notice. And if there's any tension, can you allow yourself to release it? Begin to channel some of that release into your breath. So with each exhale, we're slowly letting go of any unnecessary tension. You might find yourself even deepening your breath. Each exhale allowing the body to release into the ground. And continue to let yourself be here for 3 more breaths. And then gently start to heel toe your feet apart so they're as wide as your yoga mat, and let your knees knock in to touch. Take the palms of your hands to the tops of your thighs and push your hands into your thighs like you're trying to straighten out your arms. And then you can let your arms relax and let your knees sway from side to side like windshield wipers. And when you're ready, we'll come back to the center and we'll cross the right ankle over the left knee, finding a flex in that right ankle. You can stay here with your left foot on the ground, or you can grab behind your left thigh and lift that foot off the ground, drawing your legs in towards you. Now, whatever option that you've taken, think about pressing your tailbone into the mat. So that'll mean you have to shift your pelvis forward and tilt it away from you. And it might mean that your legs don't come as close to you as they normally do. Continue to root your tailbone into your mat. And then place both feet back down on your mat. And I meant to teach this before we did this, so we'll go ahead and do it now. Let's take a few rounds of pelvic tilt. So you can let your palms rest on your lower belly. And we're going to tilt our pelvis forward so it's in an anterior tilt. So that means your tailbone presses into the ground and the small of your lower back lifts and arches up and off the mat. Almost like a cow spine. And now you're going to draw your abdominals into your spine and think about curling your tailbone off of the mat, pressing your lower back in towards the ground. You have to pull up through your pelvic floor and pull your abdominals in. So we're lifting our pelvis, we're tilting it tilting towards our ribs. And then we're in almost a cat spine. And go ahead and try this a few times. Press your tailbone forward, press it down into the mat, let the small of your back arch up. And then rotate your pelvis back, lift the tailbone, curl it up off the mat as you pull the abdominals in. Just a few rounds of tilting the pelvis forward and backward. Almost like taking cat and cow on the ground. Great, now come back to a neutral pelvis. So that's somewhere right in between what you were just doing. And then we'll try the other side with the figure 4. Cross your left ankle over your right knee. And you'll decide if you want to stay here with your right foot on the mat, or you might lift the foot and reach behind your right thigh. Again, regardless of which option you're taking, let's think about rooting our tailbone into the mat. As we root the tailbone into the mat, we actually lengthen our spine. So try not to disrupt the lengthening of the spine by lifting the head or rounding the shoulders. If pressing your tailbone into your mat means that your head and shoulders have to lift, Then go ahead and place your right foot back down on your mat. And let's just stay here for a few more breaths. Great. Now place your both feet back on your mat. We're going to do that again. Cross the right ankle over the left knee. Stay here or lift the left foot. And this time we're actually going to rock forward and backward. So as you draw your legs closer, you round through the back and curl your tailbone up and off the mat. And then tilt the pelvis forward, press the tailbone down into the mat. We're just going to rock back and forth. This movement might be really small, depending on the range of motion in your body. And let your breath be present as you continue to tilt your pelvis forward and backward. Okay, now place your left foot on your mat. We're going to keep this figure 4 shape, but let it fall to the left. So that means the left knee falls to the ground. The right foot is going to stamp into the ground. We haven't shifted our figure 4 shape hasn't gone away. You can take your arms out to a cactus shape or a T shape and allow your right shoulder to release into the ground. You might also enjoy taking your left hand to your right thigh and pushing the thigh away from you, opening up that right side body a little bit more. And just noticing where you feel sensation or stretch. And let's come back to the center. We'll do all of that on the other side. Left ankle crosses over the right knee. And again, you're going to either stay here or lift that right foot. And regardless of which option you're taking, we're going to take a few rocks of the pelvis, rocking it forward as we press the tailbone into the mat, and rocking the pelvis back as we lift the tailbone and curl it off the mat. Just back and forth, lengthening and rounding through the spine. Or really, it's lengthening and flexing the spine. Okay, now place your right foot on your mat. Keep this figure 4 shape with your legs and let them fall to the right. So the right knee falls to the ground, the left foot stamps into the ground. We've kept this figure 4 shape. Let your arms come out to a T shape or cactus shape. And you might take your right hand to your left thigh and then come back to the center. You can roll to any side, coming into a fetal position. And then pressure our hands and knees. That might mean you set up a blanket to support your knees. And we'll go straight into a child's pose. So letting your knees open as wide as they need to, pushing your bum towards your heels, and releasing your forehead to your mat or even a block. Feel free to wiggle your hips from side to side or to nod your forehead from side to side. Giving yourself a moment to again connect to the ground. Taking some time to connect back to your breath. And finding that steady rhythm of breath, breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. And we start to find a breath that is a little bit beyond our natural way of breathing. So finding a breath that's a little bit more full. An inhale that's a little bit longer. And an exhale that's a little bit longer. So there's actually a little bit of effort that we're implementing to breathe. And for some of you, you might continue to breathe like this. When if Ujjayi breath is in your practice, you might start to incorporate that, sending a sighing like fogging like breath to the back of your throat. And continuing to let the breath flow in of the nose. When you're ready, we'll bring ourselves up to our hands and knees, and we'll come into our first downward facing dog, drawing the toes under and lifting the hips up and back. Keeping a tiny bend in your knees, maybe finding some movement. Giving the body some time to adjust to this shape, to this inversion. And then I'll invite you to find some stillness. We're going to take a few rounds of cat and cow in our downward dog. So soften your knees. Think about lifting your tailbone up towards the ceiling and letting your belly and heart release towards the ground. You can even lift your gaze just forward off to the top edge of your mat. So this movement again is pretty subtle. Now pull the belly in and lengthen your tailbone towards your heels. Take your gaze back in between your feet. And a few more times. Inhale to cow, release the belly down, the chest, tilt the tailbone up towards the sky. And then pull the belly in, lengthen your tailbone down towards your heels and look back towards your feet. Inhale to cow, releasing the belly down. And exhale to cat. Now we do this so that we can find our neutral spine in downward dog. So come to someplace right in the middle. We don't want to be in a complete cow spine, nor do we want to be in a cat spine. See if you can find that place right in the middle. And it might mean that you have to bend your knees a little bit more. And then be there in that neutral place for 3 more breaths. And then soften your knees down to your mat. Sit back to child's pose and go ahead and flip the palms up towards the sky. Take a moment to just rest. Come back to your breath. Flip the palms down to your mat. Press yourself back up to hands and knees and come back to downward facing dog. Right away, see if you can find that neutral spine, that place right in the middle. So this will mean that for most of us, the knees are bent. The belly is still pulling in. And rather than reaching your rib cage towards your thighs, you might think about tucking your rib cage into your back body. And breathe. Bend your knees a little more and look forward and start to walk your feet towards your hands. Come into a forward fold, keeping your knees bent, and let yourself hang here for a moment. You might enjoy swaying side to side. You might enjoy being still. And then keeping your knees softly bent, we're going to slowly roll up the spine, vertebra by vertebra, belly pulling in to support the back, bringing the head up west. So coming to stand in Tadasana. Okay, so I'm going to stay facing the side and I'm just kind of tucking my shirt so you can really see my pelvis a little bit better. I'm gonna have you stand with your feet a little bit wider than you normally do and soften your knees. Take one hand to your lower belly below your navel and take one hand back to your sacrum. And just rock your pelvis back and forth. Right, our pelvis is really mobile. And our pelvis, some people, their pelvis is more stable than others, but where our pelvis is in space affects our entire posture. So you can feel, if you can even place a finger on your tailbone and place a finger on your pubic bone, if that's comfortable for you, you can literally feel these two bones moving closer together and further apart. So now I'm going to ask you to stand so that your pelvis is right in the center. Can you find that center point? And again, for some of us, it might mean the knees are just softly bent. You can release your arms down your side. So we find that neutral spine. Draw your lower belly up and in, and then take your hands to your rib cage and literally close your ribs in. Use your hands to draw your ribs together and then tuck them into your back body. All right, now see if you can be here for just 3 breaths, holding all of that. It might feel a little funny. And see if you can remember how this feels. I'll invite you to come back to this place throughout our practice. With our next inhale, we're going to reach the arms out and up. And as we exhale, we'll fold forward. Inhale, lift up halfway to lengthen your spine. As you exhale, take your hands to your mat, step your right foot back, drop your right knee down, and take your hands up to your left thigh. Either stay here with the hands on the thigh or reach them up to frame your face. Take a breath in. Take a breath out. Engage through your right glute. So squeeze your right butt cheek and then lengthen your tailbone down towards the mat. Yes, lengthen your tailbone towards the mat. So you might feel more of an opening in the front of your right hip. And then take one more breath here. As you exhale, release your hands down to your mat. Tuck your right toes under. Step your left foot back to downward dog. As you inhale, come forward to plank pose. As you exhale, soften your knees down. Release your belly down, reach your heart forward, find your cow spine and breathe in. Exhale to cat, pull the belly up and in, push the earth away. Inhale to cow. Exhale to cat. Tuck your toes under, lift your hips up and back, downward dog. With an inhale, lift your right leg up, keeping your hips level. And with an exhale, step the right foot in between the hands, drop the left knee down, untuck the toes. Hands come to right thigh, or arms reach up to frame the face. Crescent lunge, Anjaneyasana. Engage the left glute and lengthen your tailbone down towards the mat. Breathe. And release your hands down to your mat. Tuck your left toes under. Step your left foot forward. Find your forward fold. Inhale, lift up halfway to lengthen your spine. Exhale, round forward. Take your hands to your mat. Step your left foot back. Drop the left knee down. Untuck the toes. Go straight to your crescent lunge. So remembering those little alignment cues and seeing if you can find your body there right away. Left glute engages, tailbone lengthens down. Feet are rooted into the mat. Breathe in. Exhale, hands come down to the mat. Left toes tuck under. Right foot steps back, downward dog. Inhale, come forward to plank. Exhale, knees soften down. Inhale to cow. Exhale to cat. Inhale to cow. Exhale to cat. Draw your toes under, lift your hips up and back, downward dog. Inhale the left leg up, keeping the hips level. Exhale, left foot steps in between the hands, right knee comes down, untuck the toes, go straight to your crescent lunge. 3 breaths. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Release your hands down to your mat. Tuck your right toes under, look forward. Step your right foot forward, forward fold. Inhale, lift up halfway. Lengthen your spine. Exhale, round forward. Inhale the arms up, roll up through the spine. Exhale, release the arms down. See if you can find that neutral pelvis, that neutral spine. Stay here for just a moment. Feel free to even close your eyes. Take one more breath in here. And when you're ready, we'll inhale the arms up. As you exhale, folding forward. Inhale, lift up halfway, lengthen your spine. Exhale, take your hands down to your blocks if you have them. We'll step the right foot back, coming into a lunge. You can take the blocks up to whatever setting works for you. The right knee's over the ankle and the right hip is pulling back. Think about hugging your left inner thigh into your right inner thigh. And then when you're ready, we're gonna lengthen out the legs and the feet essentially stay right where they are. Lifting the hips up and back. And as you inhale, re-bend your front knee, find length in your spine once more. And as you exhale, straighten out the legs any amount, lifting the hips. Let's try this just a few more times. If you don't have blocks, you can take your hands down to your right ankle or shin bone to help with balance. And for some of you, the hands might be happy on the mat. Okay, the next time that the legs are straightened or lengthened, we're going to take our blocks with us if you're using them and walk them over to the left. You're going to turn your right toes in so your feet are parallel to each other, and we'll come into this wide angle forward fold, Prasarita Padottanasana. Feel free to even shift your pelvis from side to side. So I'm not really bending into my knees. I'm just shifting into my right hip, into my left hip, feeling this lateral mobility of the pelvis. Okay, now shift your weight into your toes and into your heels. And let your weight settle somewhere right in the center. So it might mean for some of you that you have to bend your knees a little bit. That's okay. And then once you find that place right in the middle, we're going to take our awareness into our sit bones, our butt bones. And think about spreading those bones wide, letting them move further apart. And as you let the sit bones move further apart, draw your kneecaps up into your quadriceps. So your legs are still engaged. And then root down into the outer edge, the pinky toe edge of your feet, and your feet are still engaged. So our legs are really active, and our pelvis is slowly shifting and opening. And as you continue to engage your legs and open up the back of your pelvis, you might even find yourself folding into this shape a little bit further. Breathe here for a few more breaths. Sorry, I lost an AirPod. Take a couple more breaths. And then we're going to bring ourselves back over to the right foot. So if you were on your elbows, come back up. Walk your hands back over to your right foot. Turn your right toes out. You can take your hands down to your mat and step your right foot back to downward facing dog. As we inhale, come forward to plank pose. As you exhale, soften your knees down. Shift your shoulders over your wrists and let's lower down halfway for a modified chaturanga. Bend the elbows back, hug them in tight, the belly lifted off the mat. Now press into your hands and go ahead and let your belly release to the ground and come into a baby cobra. Root into your feet so your kneecaps lift and press your pubic bone into your mat. Take one more breath here. And then tuck the toes under. Push yourself back up through bent knees or through plank and come back to downward dog. Take a full breath in and a full breath out. Still staying on the right leg. We're gonna lift the right leg up. Step the right foot in between the hands, and this time we'll root down into the feet to rise up into a high lunge. And I'm gonna have you take your hands to your hips and bend your back knee. And again, typically in a high lunge, we find this anterior tilt of the pelvis. So you can kind of just rock your pelvis back and forth. I've got a hand on my sacrum. You might try this. I'm doing this just to help my pelvis feel stable. Now, find that place in the middle. Again, it might mean the back knee has to bend. And then see if you can keep your pelvis in that neutral place and work to lengthen out your back leg. For a lot of us, this probably won't happen unless your hamstrings are really open and your hip flexors are really open. Reach your arms up to frame your face if you can, and let's be here for just 3 more breaths. Exhale your hands down to your mat. Step your back foot forward. Come into a forward fold. With your inhale, let's lift up about halfway, lengthening the spine. And with an exhale, rounding forward. Take your hands down to your blocks if you have them. We'll step the right foot back this time as we come into our low lunge. Again, just setting yourself up. The left knee's over the ankle. The left hip pulls back. And the right inner thigh is hugging in towards the left inner thigh. When you're ready, we'll lift the hips high and lengthen out the legs any amount. So I say that meaning your legs don't have to straighten. And then you inhale and rebend, coming back to your lunge. And exhale to lift and lengthen. Try this a few more times, inhaling to lunge. Exhaling to lengthen. Moving at your own pace. And the next time that your legs are lengthened and you're in this version of pyramid pose, we'll come back to our wide angle forward fold. Walk your hands over to the right. You might take your blocks with you. Turn your left toes in and bring your feet so they're parallel to each other. Now you can be up on your hands and up on blocks. You might come down to your elbows on blocks or even on the ground, just depends on your body. And just like we did on the other side, we're going to shift our weight into the left hip and shift it into the right hip, feeling this lateral or side to side shifting of your pelvis. And then rock the weight into the toes and into the heels, back and forth. This is often a pose where I find people want to widen their feet and get their elbows to the ground or get their head to the ground. But really, just by engaging and shifting where our pelvis is in space, we can actually go further. So find that place right in the center. Again, without adjusting where your feet are, keep them right where they are. And start to find these little minor engagements. So pull your kneecaps up into your quadriceps. And as you engage through the legs and root down through the feet, think about tilting your pelvis into that anterior tilt. So the sit bones, the butt bones are tilting up towards the sky and they're moving further apart. So we're actually widening the back of the pelvis. Now, as we widen through the back of the pelvis, you might feel more of a stretch in the backs of your legs. And depending on your body, you might even find yourself going a little bit deeper into the shape. Breathe here. And I also like to normalize, it's okay if you don't go deeper into the shape. We don't have to go to the limit every time. We just have to evoke some sort of sensation. Okay, if you're down on your elbows, or if you're in a really deep version of the shape, start to make your way out slowly. That might mean you come back up onto your hands. We're gonna walk our hands and our blocks back over to our left foot. Come back to your lunge. And let's plant down the hands and step the left foot back. Come back to downward dog. As you inhale, come forward to plank pose. Exhale, soften the knees down. You can keep the knees up if chaturanga is in your practice. If it's not, soften the knees down. We'll lower down halfway, elbows hugging in tight. And then find your way into cobra. It could be baby cobra, it could be full cobra. Press yourself up and back. Let's come back to downward dog. Inhale the left leg up. Exhale, step that foot forward, find your low lunge. Root down into the balls of your feet to rise up. We're coming into our high lunge. And right away, we're gonna take the hands to the hips and soften the back knee. And just kind of rock your pelvis back and forth. Notice how it shifts. Find that place right center where your tailbone is lengthening down. And then see how much you can lengthen out through your back leg without shifting your pelvis. Again, for most people, it's going to be quite challenging to straighten out the back leg without moving your pelvis. If you like, your arms can come up and frame your face, and we'll just be here in this pose for 3 more breaths. And release your hands down to your mat. Step your right foot forward, come back to a forward fold. With an inhale, lift up halfway to lengthen your spine. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale the arms up, roll up through the spine. Back to that neutral pelvis, neutral spine. If you need to, place your hands on your body if it's helpful. Take a deep breath in and let it out. Inhale your arms up. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, lift up halfway, flattening out your back. Exhale, plant your palms down to your mat. Step back to plank pose. Let's take some version of a vinyasa flow. So I've given you lots of options throughout your practice, whatever that looks like for you. And we'll meet back up in a downward facing dog. Inhale your right leg up. As you exhale, step your foot in between your hands. Spin your back heel down and align your front heel to the arch of your back foot. You're gonna climb your right elbow up to your right thigh. Take your left hand to your hip and then peel your chest open to the front, side angle pose. Feel free to reach the left arm up and over the ear. Rooting down into the outer edge of your left foot. Find a couple more breaths here. Push down into the feet. We're gonna lift up and back and take a peaceful warrior, opening up through the right palm, opening up through the chest, breathing in. And as you exhale, cartwheel the hands down to your mat. Step your right foot back to downward facing dog. Inhale the left leg up. Exhale, step that foot in between the hands. Spin your right heel down. Align your front heel to the arch of your back foot. Climb your left elbow up to your left thigh. Take your right hand to your hip and then peel your chest open to the right side wall, Parshvanottanasana. You might keep your right hand on your hip, or you might reach that arm up and over the right ear. Breathe here. Root down into your feet to rise up. We're going to reach the left palm up towards the sky and tilt back to peaceful warrior. Big breath in. As you exhale, as you exhale, soften your knees down for cow. And draw the belly up and in for cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Sit back to your heels, find your child's pose. The knees can widen as much as you'd like. And a big breath in. And a big breath out. Okay. You can start to walk your hands in back towards your knees and roll up through the spine. I want to give us a moment to sit in Vajrasana. So the knees come together. I'm going to actually turn to face you. And we sit back on the heels. For a lot of people, this shape can be really uncomfortable. I know that it is for me. So I'm going to sit on blocks. I'm going to stack my blocks up like this and put them in between my feet. If you don't have blocks, you could use a pillow. You could even just wedge a blanket in between your heels and your bum. But it's giving your bum a little bit of a lift so that it's not putting all of that weight back onto your heels. And Vajrasana is a great shape because what it does is our natural so good that they're not tilted forward or back, but they're right in the center. So if you're on blocks, your butt bones are just nestled on those blocks. If you're not using blocks, your butt bones are just nestled on top of your heels. And we'll just be here for a moment. Notice if you're leaning back or if you're leaning forward. And allow your shoulders to just stack on top of your hips. Feel free to even close your eyes. This brings our spine back to a neutral place. Taking a moment to just feel your body in this shape. We all have habits that we formed throughout our lives based on our upbringing, based on our surroundings. And some of those habits are good and some of them are bad. And some of them are maybe not bad, but maybe some of them are inconvenient. And so when we show up to our yoga practice, we start to look at ourselves with more awareness. I don't like to use judgment, really just awareness. We start to notice how we stand, how we sit, how we breathe. And it gives us the time and space to start to make choices that can help us move through life in a way that is a little bit more efficient, more supportive. So if you'd like to join me, we'll take 2 deep breaths. Big breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And a big breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Okay. Let's come out of Vidrasana and we'll start to prepare for some of these restorative shapes. Okay, so first, let me just check the time and see how much time we have to do this. All right, a little bit. Okay, so I want to take us into, we've really been focusing on like a neutral spine today. So I want our restorative shapes to keep us in that place. So we're going to come into legs up the wall or legs on top of a chair or bed. So if you don't have a wall nearby, you can drape your legs over a chair like this, or over the side of your couch or even your bed. If you do have a wall nearby, then we're going to get close to that wall. You want to face the side. So your outer hip is touching the wall. You're going to roll onto your side and wiggle your butt back. So it's actually touching the wall. And then you're going to roll onto your back and let your legs rest on the wall. I brought a blanket with me. For some people, it might feel nice to have a little bit of support under the head. The base of the skull can sometimes be bony on the ground. So if you want a little more cushion, feel free to take it. And of course, I left my phone away from me, so I'm going to have to keep time in a mental way without the support of technology. So take a moment to settle into this shape. You might even notice if it's difficult for you to straighten your legs on the wall. That's okay. If your knees need to be bent a little, then bend them. The idea is to have you can rest your hands on your belly or maybe along your sides. And if it feels okay, take this time to close your eyes. Let your breath be easy, but let it be steady and consistent. Notice if you're holding on to any tension in your face, softening your brow bone, softening your jaw and your neck, softening your shoulders. If your shoulders feel tense, then take your arms along your sides and let your palms face up towards the sky. And allow the whole pelvis to really anchor into the ground. Let it be heavy. And give yourself just a few more moments of stillness and even a little bit of silence. If you find yourself getting lost, if you find your mind wandering off to places that you'd rather it not be, kindly guide yourself back to this moment by bringing your attention back to your breath. Gently, let's start to bend our knees, drawing them in towards the chest. Roll over to any side, coming into a fetal position. And then press yourself up all the way up to sit. And we'll prepare for our final restorative pose. And for this last pose, you might use a pillow. My pillow's on my bed, but you can make it work with blocks. So we're gonna come into, sorry, that last pose was so relaxing for me. My brain's we're gonna come into a side lying Shavasana. So depending on what props you're working with, ways to do this, but essentially you're gonna lie down on your side. You need some kind of support under your head. So I'm gonna fold up my blanket pretty thickly, actually, almost the same thickness as a yoga block. I'm gonna let my head rest on that pillow. And then my top leg is going to either rest on a pillow or a bolster. You can place that in front of you. And I'm just gonna use blocks. So I'm gonna take my blocks to the medium and let my knee down to my foot rest on these blocks. So when you're setting yourself up, right, your spine will remain neutral one way naturally just by being on your side. When you have it propped up, it's level with your hip. So if your knee is kind of sagging down and your hip is higher, then you're actually coming into a bit of a back bend. So if you find yourself there, then get another pillow or get another prop and prop your knee up a little bit higher so that it's level with your hip. And then your arms can rest wherever it feels okay, on your side, on the ground, and we'll be here. If the ground feels really uncomfortable on your hip, you can also put a blanket under your hip. I should have told you that first, sorry. But we'll take these last few minutes of our practice to lie here on our side. Letting our body rest, allowing our thoughts to drift in and drift out. Slowly, let's start to invite in a few and some movement. And you can start to press in your hands and bring yourself up to sit. We'll bring our palms together at the heart, closing our eyes if you like. Then we'll close our practice breaths. Big breath in and let it out. Breath in and out. Big breath in and out. Gently bowing your forehead towards your hands, offering many thanks to yourself and to the many teachers of this practice. Namaste. Thank you all for practicing with me today. I'm Jenna. If you have any questions, let me know. I think I mentioned this to you all last week, but maybe I didn't. What I have going on this month is on Sundays, I'm offering free yoga for